97 for 3 is the score here at the old Sapphire Gardens that we were reminiscing about there. 27 overs bowled. Pietersen and Collingwood will be polishing off their lunch, no doubt, before coming out again. Very much Australia's morning that, after rather a lifeless start, really, but they got that wicket of Cook, a brilliant catch by Hussey, diving in the gully off the bowling of Hilfenhaus, and that really got them going. They lifted up a gear. Johnson dismissed Strauss, a quick ball that he gloved and was taken by Clarke at slip. Strauss out for 30, and then Bopara, well, he got one in the throat. Another nasty bouncer as well from Siddle, who softened him up, but it's a really crafty piece of bowling from Johnson. A slower ball tossed outside the off stump. Bopara's footwork, as we know, can be a little bit casual, and he was lured into driving a catch to Hughes at point out for 35. So that was 90 for 3. The umpires are on their way again. Messrs Dar at this end, of course. 97 for 3, Mr. Doctor over at the other with his hat on. Pietersen 6, Collingwood 5, and Henry Blofeld, I suspect, has enjoyed a good lunch, and he's going to kick us off after the break. Henry.
Yes, Agus, it was a delicious pork pie. Massey swinging the ball all over the place. Dear, oh dear. What a memory. You thought his first memory of cricket, Agus, would have been of an England victory. Anyway, the Australians are taking the field, very well satisfied with the way things have gone. England, who won an important toss, it seemed, 97 for 3. They've lost 3 good wickets, all, I think, to avoidable strokes. And it just makes me wonder, Vic Marks, if this might not be the sort of pitch where the ball is never going to come really onto the bat. We're looking at a fairly low scoring test match, and it may get lower and slower, and scoring runs may become harder and harder as we get into the match.
I think you're probably right, and I base that on bumping into England's cricket director, I think it is, Hugh Morris, who of course played down here for years and years, and he clearly felt a bit frustrated that England had lost 3 wickets. And reckoned the first innings was the time to get the runs, but he said you've got to be patient here, even if it means scoring slowly.
Well, is this, do you think, the thing that, I mean, modern Test cricket, you've been used to 400 runs a day, and although this is very much not that sort of a pitch, it may be that this whole idea is still instilled into the batsmen's minds.
Well, you don't see many players who think, I'll just occupy the crease and take what runs come nowadays. Pietersen doesn't. I mean, to his credit, I mean, it makes it a much better spectacle as a result, but Pietersen doesn't really think like that. Collingwood might.
Well, Collingwood is one who could graft his way to it, couldn't he? Matt Pryor won't, who's coming. Flintoff is unlikely to. I think Chris Broad might be able to.
Or even Stuart.
Even Stuart, you're quite well, thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
But I mean, one person. So far we've had 3 players who've got in. Even Cook had just about got in, and 3 have got out. Someone, from an England perspective, has got and play 1 major innings to get England to a respectable total. First innings runs like gold dust here, because that'll enable England's spinners to bowl without too much pressure on them, with runs on the board.
And it's going to be Hilfenhaus who's going to start off from the River Taff end, and he's going to bowl to Pietersen with 3 slips of gully, back cover, mid-off, mid-on, mid-wicket, and a fine leg. Clouds still over the ground, but quite high, lots of blue sky in the distance, and a little bit overhead. The crowd loving it, and we had even more singing and anthems during the lunch interval. And here's Hilfenhaus now, bowling the first ball of the afternoon, coming into Kevin Pietersen. He's there now, he bows, and Pietersen plays no stroke to one. That's outside the off stump, didn't really move at all. That he went straight on, didn't shape towards the slips, and it was wide enough for him not to attempt a stroke. Pietersen goes down the wicket and gives it rather a thoughtful prod. Maybe from England's point of view, that's a good sign. He's realising that this is not a pitch on which you can play wildly handsome and exotic strokes. You really have got to look a bit more. But even so, when Pietersen hits the ball, it will stay hit. A gliding, rather sleepy seagull flies across the ground, and Hilfenhaus is in to bowl. He's there now, he bowls, and Pietersen drives us through the covers, and it's going away for 4 runs. Well, Pietersen, there is no haltering him, is there? It was the half volley, it was there, he came forward, and there was no nonsense, it was 4 runs. And that is the man, that's the joy of the man, and that is where the way in which he can transcend conditions. It's 101 now for 3, and Pietersen has gone along to 10.
Yep, and that was the best shot he's played so far because he was all nerves and tip and run before lunch. Just about a half volley.
And Hilfenhaus again in, up to the wicket, bowls out Pietersen. Pietersen just digs this one out, pushed it back down the pitch. Hilfenhaus bends down, half stops it, and then picks it up. And still this rather persistent seagull, who's obviously had a good lunch and is trying to fly it off, is circling round the ground. No wind, the trees haven't been moving. Lovely trees here, a lovely vista of trees and a few hills in the background. It's a wonderful countrified ground, this arena here at Cardiff. And Hilfenhaus it is. He's in, past umpire Dottrove. He's there, he bowls. Pietersen goes back, a bit of a hop and a skip and a jump, plays it down on the onside, and it's the diminutive, or really fairly diminutive Hughes, who comes tripping in from short mid-wicket and going in front of mid-on, and picks up. And the score remains England 101 for 3. And the crowd slow back to their places after lunch. Corporate hospitality suites reign supreme, I dare say, in Cardiff, just as they do at all other cricket centres. And people enjoying the final touches of their lunch. Hilfenhaus again bowls, and Pietersen plays his way nicely off his pads out there to Katich at 2/3 the way back at deep mid-wicket, and they run a single. So Pietersen goes on to 11, and it's 102 for 3. And I must say, every time Pietersen faces a ball, there's a little added frisson of excitement. This is the measure of the man, isn't it, as a cricketer?
Well, England are dependent on him, overly dependent, you might say, because he is, so far and away, their best batsman. And his wicket, therefore, counts for more, because if Australia get him, they really are cock-a-hoop. You feel you've got Pietersen, you've almost got England. It's a slight exaggeration, but you know what I mean. So much depends upon him.
Hilfenhaus to Collingwood now. Collingwood forward, just digging that out. I think we come back to sensible, sober cricket when Hilfenhaus bowls to Collingwood. We see a shot that isn't attempted to hit for 4, so to speak. It's the end of the first over of the afternoon. It's 102 for 3, 11 to Pietersen, and 5 to Paul Collingwood.
Well, let's have a look who's going to come from this Cathedral Road end. It's going to be Siddle, who didn't actually take a wicket this morning, but bowled a typically aggressive spell, sometimes wayward, but always at the batsman. He was unlucky, really, not to get Bopara right at the start of Bopara's innings. He bowled a couple of short balls at Bopara, and he didn't quite know where to go and let the ball hit him in the end.
Bopara had a bit of luck, didn't he? And had he gone early, it might have changed his summer. I mean, he didn't score 100 as he has done against the West Indies 3 times lately. But by the time he got out, I know he was a good piece of bowling, and it was perhaps a silly shot, but he was beginning to look more like himself. And I don't think that innings will have, as it were, destroyed his confidence as a naught might have done. It's Siddle now, starting in from the Cathedral Road end. He's in, he bowls Pietersen. Pietersen shoulders arms in magnificent style. That again is the man. When even he leaves the ball alone, he does it as though he's wanting his photograph to be taken.
Well, the thing about Bopara's innings is it's broken a sequence.
Yes.
Which was 0, 0, 0, and then sort of 100, 100, 100, slightly more than 100. All 3 instances. So he's gone back to normality, really, now, with a 35.
No, do you think? I think
3 noughts and 3 hundreds. I'm not sure anyone's ever done that.
No, that's interesting, isn't it?
Well, there's, he had something similar.
Siddle it is. Into Pietersen. He's there now. Pietersen comes forward and runs this way to backward point. Hauritz is there. And they thought just momentarily of a single. Hauritz had to go to his left, but he was getting there jolly quickly. And I think probably Collingwood put an end to any thoughts Pietersen might have had about a run there. I'm sorry, Vic, I've had to shut the window, but if I left it open, the bar of the window made it totally impossible for me to see the scoreboard.
Well, we shall have to have it shut then.
Well, we will. I mean, I'm afraid if it's hot, you'll just have to blame me.
We will, don't worry.
And here comes Peter Siddle once more. In, passed down by Alim Dar, bowls outside. Oh, Pietersen came forward. Now, didn't you think he was going to deliver the most almighty blow at bat? I did. He picked the way he picked his bat up. In the end, it was as blameless as a baby. He just took his bat out of the way and let the ball go comfortably past. But I must say, for a moment, I was about to catch my breath.
Yeah, well, he does look, actually, he looks a bit more composed post-lunch than he did before lunch, where he was all over the shop.
He was, wasn't he? I mean, he was jolly lucky to survive those few minutes, really. I mean, he had a couple of closest shouts against him, too, didn't he, LBW-wise? And here comes Siddle once more. In, up to the wicket, bowls over pitch, and Pietersen, what happened to that one? It was fairly well up to him. He came forward, pushing it on the leg side, and
like he almost yorked himself.
Well, I thought he went through the stumps there.
I don't think he did that, Henry.
No, nor do I. But he very nearly did york himself, and he went very narrowly past the off stump through to the wicketkeeper.
Well, I reckon, I don't know whether he did change his pace there, but that's a feature of the Australians bowling today. They've looked at this pitch, and it's like a subcontinental pitch in some ways. It's dry, not much bounce, and they're varying their pace quite cleverly, particularly Johnson has.
Siddle in again, bowls Pietersen. It's well up. Pietersen drives, doesn't really time it. Johnson fields there at mid-off, returns to Haddin, and that was one of the, on another day, would have been racing away to the boundary. He didn't, the great man, quite time it that time. And he again goes down the pitch and gives it a prod. I suppose even Pietersen suffers a little bit from nerves, the tension of the moment, and adrenaline rush, and needs to slightly dissipate it. Prodding the pitch probably enables him to do that between balls. It's Siddle back at his mark, 2 slips gully, cover, extra cover mid-off. He's in, he's there now, bowled. Pietersen comes forward, doesn't play a stroke. The ball shapes away towards the slips. Taken there low down by Haddin, who's a keeper who likes to take the ball down by his toast caps rather than by his knees. It's the end of the over, 102 for 3. Pietersen has 11, a maiden over, and Collingwood has 5.
Yeah, well, going back to Bopara, 3 noughts followed by 300. That's almost as rare as 100 at Lords, and a victim of a hat-trick at Lords.
No, third victim of a hat-trick.
The third victim of a hat-trick at Lords. Sprung back into your head? Not many people have done that. Not many people have got their solitary first-class 100 at Lords and then also been the victim of a hat-trick.
You're beginning to tell the story right now, but it's interesting, isn't it? Anyway, it's Hilfenhaus coming in from the taff end. Bowls Collingwood. Collingwood comes forward and drives. Fulton was not right across, and he hits it powerfully down there to mid-off, and it's North who fields. And that was slightly typical Collingwood. There was quite a gap between bat and pad. His foot went down the line of the off stump. And as a result of that, we've got Hughes coming from third slip to short extra cover. So if you're going to play with your bat away from your body, you can be caught by off one of those skimmers, can't you? Which is boring. Here comes Hilfenhaus again in, bowls to Collingwood. Collingwood cautiously pushes a good length ball, a little bit over pitch perhaps, down there to Johnson at mid-on. And Johnson returns rather energetically to Haddin, and there is no run. And it always happens after lunch at cricket grounds, the hum of conversation, the hustle, it gets a little bit exaggerated. A certain amount of amber liquid, I dare say, even red liquid gets put down the hatch during the lunch interval.
It's strange, isn't it? We've got a full house too, Cardiff. And
Hilfenhaus again in, bowls Collingwood gets a run there. That was an extraordinary homespun Collingwood stroke. It was a ball you would expect him rather to play on the offside pass, but he suddenly twiddled his bat across with his wrists. Not a very gainly way. Got his run. That was as safe as houses to SWALEC.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a pretty shot. I'm not sure it was entirely intentional, but he squirted it.
It's typical Collingwood there, yeah. I think.
But the odd thing, full house, absolutely full house at Cardiff, and I should think less than half the seats are occupied at the moment.
I know.
The corporate hospitality is in full swing. 103
for 3, and Hilfenhaus in again now, bowls Pietersen. Pietersen doubles at the knees, or bends down. You think again some fearful explosive firework is going to emerge. In fact, he pushes it down to North at mid-off, and nothing is done. It's 103 for 3, 11 to Pietersen, and 6 now to Collingwood. And these two really have got to stay here for the rest of the day for England. If they do that, England will be well pleased. But it's a tall ask. And here is Hilfenhaus once more in. He bowls to Pietersen outside the off stump. Pietersen has nothing to do with it, shaping again just a little bit away towards the slips. And Haddin, who's done very well today. Haddin is not a keeper in the Gilchrist or Healy mould. But he's kept very tidily today, hasn't he?
Yeah, I can't remember it. I haven't noticed him. That's usually the definition, isn't it?
We'll wait to see when Hauritz comes on, bowls his off breaks, and he has to stand up close to the stumps. We may get a different story then, rather. And Hilfenhaus is in. He bowls. Oh, and that's driven by Pietersen for forehand magnificently. Again, he just came way forward with his left leg, down by the off stump, waited for the ball, and hit it. Almost shoveled it away. It wasn't an absolutely thunderous drive, but it was a decisive enough one. And 4 more runs. Over it goes by the floodlight pylon on the farther Cardiff City side of the ground. End of the over. 107 now for 3. Pietersen 15. And
it was a good shot. I mean, it was just about a half volley.
He was.
But he did hit it well. And it was quite wide. He had to stretch in the end.
He sort of had to, didn't he? Yes, absolutely.
A little bit of swing for Hilfenhaus, but it sort of started swinging from quite early in its flight path.
I thought Pietersen actually got into position with his foot first, and then his bat almost came down a little bit later. There was a sort of delay, and which enabled him to judge the swing absolutely right. And it's going to be Siddle, Peter Siddle. 3 steps gully, cover, mid-off, mid-on, mid-wicket, and a fine leg. They're in position. He's going to bowl to Collingwood, who looks round the field carefully, settles over his bat, and now is waiting for Siddle, who's on his way in, kicking up his heels as he goes. He's there. Collingwood comes forward, watches this minutely, like all very good batsmen, knows the exact width of his stumps, just as good drivers of good cars know the width of their cars. I'm sure you haven't got dents on the edges of your cars, have you, Victor?
Well, I've got a little one. But I'd like to point out I didn't put it there.
Oh dear. I hope Mrs. Marks isn't listening.
No, she didn't either, actually.
You were very quick with that. But really good batsmen know exactly the width of their
It's a good analogy.
And they know when they can just, an extra inch allows them to leave it alone. Here is Siddle again in bowls, and Collingwood goes back and plays a slightly rough-looking stroke into the covers, and there's a misfield there by Johnson going to his left at mid-off, and it is covered up, picked up by Hauritz running back from cover, and they get another run. It's the first real piece of misfielding we've seen today. They got a couple there.
Well, they got 2 in
yes,
total,
that's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Did I not say?
Well, yes, you did. I'm sorry, I was getting... we'll carry on. It's Collingwood.
We've gone long.
What's up there?
I'll tell you, Jamal.
There you are.
109 for 3. Collingwood has 8. And here is Siddle. He's up to the wicket. He bowls. Oh, Collingwood's forward, pushing out in the offside. Hauritz comes racing in from the covers. A seagull goes flopping across rather energetically. It looks as though there's a bit of a breeze up there. And he's like one of those chaps that go and... on surfboards, and they suddenly stand up on waves and go scooting along. That seagull had that sort of look about him. And the score stays on 109 for 3.
It's more seagull territory than pigeon territory, I'd say, here.
Sadly, but I dare say that the greybacks will get their moment later when we get to London. Here comes Siddle in again, and Collingwood is forward, pushing this back down to mid-on, where Katich picks up and returns to Haddin. And in the way that happens these days, Michael Vaughan was the great one, wasn't he, when he was captain, fielding it mid-off, mid-on. He always used to return the ball behind the stumps. And it just sort of keeps the batsmen on their toes, I suppose, and shows that, we're in this game and very much looking to get you. Just, doesn't it? It sort of underlines a couple of phrases, you might say. And Siddle, it is once more. Coming in, he's up to the wicket, he's there now, he bowls, and Collingwood is forward. Collingwood's got to be the rock of this partnership, and he's looking very rocky at the moment as far as Australia are concerned. He's an obdurate chap, he's a determined chap, and I don't think you would ever guess that he was the only man to have scored a double century for England and that lovely ground at the Adelaide Oval, when you think of people like Hobbs and Hammond and all the others. But he did in the last tour, and was desperately unlucky that we didn't hang on in that match. He and Pietersen put on a big stand, but of course Shane Warne got us in the end.
Yeah, we declared too. England declared.
Agony, wasn't it? Anyway, here comes Siddle again in. Oh, that's half volley, and he drives, and that one goes on the bottom hand all the way down to mid-on. It's picked up there by Katich, and there is no run. So at the end of the over, it is 109 for 3. It's very indistinct, the score, but I think that's 14. Was it 15 to Pietersen?
15.
15, thank you. And 6, was it 8? Terribly small. I think 8 it is to Collingwood.
That's right. An interesting little passage of play coming up, because welcome to Test cricket in England to Nathan Hauritz, the off-spinner. Lots been written about Nathan Hauritz. Is he good enough to be playing? Is he the best spinner in Australia? Is he the best spinner in New South Wales? He doesn't always get in the New South Wales team, but he is the solitary spinner on this tour for Australia. I think they were quite right to pick him in this match where we expect the ball to turn at some point.
You're desperately going to need the variety, aren't you?
Exactly. So they had to play him here, although there was some debate as to whether they would. How England are going to go about him? He is a weak link in the Aussie lineup. Are they going to try and knock him out, play very aggressively against him? I'm just looking at the field, and they're not going to over-attack there because we've already got a long on, about 10 yards in from the boundary, a square deep mid-wicket and a backward square leg. So it's 3 men on the boundary for Hauritz. So a new little passage of play. A lot of talk about will this pitch turn? Well, we might find out a bit in the next 10 minutes or so.
Anyone think you bowled off breaks the way you're banging on? Here comes Hauritz, his first ball now. He's into Pietersen, and Pietersen sweeps. And from outside the off stump, and gets one, and we'll get another, I think. Yes, it goes very slowly down towards fine leg, and it's Siddle who comes in and fields, and so 2 to Pietersen. He goes to 17. It's 111 for 3, Nelson's time. Yeah. The 2 people who will be sitting on the edge of their seats a little bit are Graeme Swann and Monty Panesar. They will be interested to see whether the ball takes with a spin, won't they?
They will.
Hauritz, quite tall. Comes in a straight little run, 6 paces or so, up to the wicket. He bowls again to Pietersen. Pietersen off the back foot, plays it into the ground. It's poached by Katich on the bounce third forward short leg. And a dot in the scorebook. Slip backward point, extra cover mid-off. And here comes... it's again, this time Pietersen sweeps and it's going down fine. That's going, it's just going to be cut off there by Siddle, and they come back for the second one. There was a yell there. There often is a yell when batsmen sweep. Bowlers hope that they may have actually been going to hit the pad and not the bat, but Pietersen got away with it. He now goes to 19 and the score 113 for 3.
Well, 2 sweeps from Pietersen, and these are not from deliveries that are necessarily going down the leg side, so it's clear aggressive intent. Hauritz is now tinkering with his leg side field. He's put his backward square leg a little finer.
Here he is again, past umpire Trotte. He bowled, Pietersen goes back, plays that again on the bounce to Katich, who picks up and chucks it back to the bowler. Yes, on the leg side, we've got a long on, a shortish mid-wicket, a rather straight, forward short leg, deep square, and a backward square, 2/3 the way in from the boundary. That's Siddle. And here's Hauritz again in, Pietersen immaculately forward as though butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. And Katich runs forward from forward short leg, picks up and returns to the bowler. To spin or not to spin, Victor, would you say?
Well, I think it will turn here, but it'll turn very slowly. That's my guess.
And here is Hauritz again in bowls, and Pietersen lets it go past the off stump. It's taken there by Haddin, and at the end of the over, it's 113 for 3, 19 to Pietersen, 8 to Collingwood. And while I get out of my pew and hand over to Jonathan Agnew, you perhaps might discuss how this spin is going to develop as the match goes on, Victor.
Well, I anticipate it turning a little bit more as the game goes on. That's what should happen on the proper cricket pitch. A bit early to tell what Hauritz has got out of that over. I think he's bowling towards us, which also makes it slightly difficult. I think there's a couple just gripped a little bit.
They did, Victor. I can confirm. I was watching on the telly. So, 113 for 3. Siddle's on his way. The strong, quick bowler is pulled over mid-wicket by Collingwood, and that'll run away for 4, I think, to a delighted-looking crowd down there to our right. 1 or 2 come rushing down to try and pick the ball up, but it hasn't quite got the legs for that, and it just dribbles into the boundary edging. And England go to 117 for 3. Collingwood now on to 12. So, a really important session, this. It was Australia's session before lunch, that's for sure. But they've got some batting to do now. Siddle from this end runs in past Alim Dar over the wicket. He bowls outside the off stump, and Collingwood this time lets it go by. What's wrong, Victor? You're jumping about like a cat on a hot tin roof.
I had engineers in the ear.
Oh, did you? A lot of people are still having lunch, it seems to me.
Yeah.
And did you make the stroll for lunch? Because
I went into the indoor school.
Thoroughly worth it, wasn't it?
In the indoor school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice sort of lamb stew on offer in there.
No, it wasn't any of that one.
Fantastic. I feel
missed that.
revigorated after all that.
Revigorated, are you?
117 for 3, and goes Siddle. Bowls outside the off stump, and he stretches it rather for it here. Collingwood. He's got it away through extra cover, and they'll get 3. Not big boundaries here at Cardiff. Particularly when you get looking at the squarer boundaries, got a big hit really. Straighter ones are shorter. As we know, it'll chip into the taff. I'm sure you've spent some time, Victor, looking for your ball.
Well, actually,
I
didn't see that was part of my responsibility. Looking for the damn thing.
Send someone in there. I was doing frogman on full alert when you were bowling from that end. I remember Peter Willie going in there a few times. Yeah. Very funny. Oh no, he was
shorter than at Grace Road, I tell you.
Pietersen, 2 slips and a gully. Down they go, that's full straight. He clips it up to mid-on, cuffing it rather. And it's picked up there, and there's no run. 120 for 3. Mitchell Johnson with a couple of wickets to his name already after a rather inauspicious start, I felt. But he came roaring back. An interesting chat just now with Michael Kaspervich and Andy Bickle, who were just wandering around actually on the way back from lunch down there. The 2 Australian quick bowlers, of course, who made, I thought, a good point. And that I was reflecting a little glumly on it having been Australia's morning. In goes Siddle, bowls, that's a slower ball, driven into the offside. Oh, beautifully stopped there at point. That'll be Hauritz, who's a good fielder. He put out a hand there, stopped it. 120 for 3. And I thought they made a good point, because they said, well, since being kicked out of the 2020, Australia actually have only had one thing in mind, that has been the Ashes, and they've been rather champing at the bit. They spent that time in Leicester, of course, they weren't terribly thrilled about. And
why did they have to go to Leicester?
Why not?
No, but why did they go to Leicester?
Well, where else would you rather go in the country than Leicester if you had a couple of weeks to spare, Victor? I thought they were very harsh on Leicester. Then goes Siddle, bowls outside the off stump, and Pietersen lets it go by. Anyway, apparently they were a little bit glum at this.
Slough, possibly?
Well, you'll get yourself in trouble. You'll get yourself
I know, yes, I will. Go on. Why did they go to Leicester then? Oh, no, sorry, carry on.
Yes, well, they said, therefore, that actually to end up fielding first today might have been quite a good thing. It actually got them out there, finally, after, some weeks of waiting and champing at the bit and nervousness and tension and everything else. Actually, just to get out there as a team, get the first overs bowled. I thought that's quite a good point, actually.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have been enough to persuade Ricky Ponting to put England in had he won the toss.
Probably not, and that was a slight failing maybe in Casper's argument. But
there speaks a couple stalwart fast bowlers who don't have to bowl fast anymore.
Yes, exactly. Yes, wandering around with sunglasses on.
Yes. Very good for him.
120 for 3. 33 overs gone. Hauritz with his rather spiky hair is going to continue his off-spin from the taff end, so he's bowling with that very short boundary behind him. And he's bowling to Collingwood, who turns that away to forward short leg, just past him actually. Katich there tumbles over and over, can't stop it. And Siddle, strongly built young man, not as big as Jamie Roberts, mind you, comes up from deep backward square leg. They take 121 for 3. Big lad, wasn't he?
He looked like he might be able to bowl quick.
Fit. Pietersen looks around the field, slip, short leg. Hauritz bowls to him, a little turn there, and it's worked away from short of a length by Pietersen with that slow turn. And again, Siddle pressed into action. 122 for 3. People still coming back from lunch, still coming up the gangways to our right here, but swathes of upturned blue seats to our left in the members area. Maybe that's corporate territory, and they're in the marquees and tents and so on behind there still. Collingwood forward defends, the ball trickles up the pitch. And Hauritz fields, and that of course is where the nets used to be, didn't they, Victor, over there, where that very nice looking marquee is now situated. And we're toiling away in there before they built that stand to our left. 122 for 3. Over the wicket comes Hauritz, and that's a forcing stroke off the back foot by Collingwood. He looks as if he really hit it hard, but in fact the ball's rather trickling out towards that point boundary. It's fielded by Hughes, and they'll come back for 3. 125 for 3. again, that really shows the slow nature of the pitch, and that Collingwood tried to force it away. He really gave it a bit of a thrash with his bat, but there was no pace off the pitch, and therefore not much off the bat either. 125 for 3. England trying to recover from 90 for 3, and now it's Pietersen's turn to go on the back foot. And, well, he plays a defensive shot, picks the ball up and underarms it to the bowler, who's a bit startled by all of this, and he didn't see it coming. He wants to be careful that he wasn't handling the ball there.
That would have set the series alight, wouldn't it? A little appeal there.
He did it very quickly. 125 for 3. Hauritz looked a bit startled. He's got the ball back now. Long on has dropped back. Pietersen comes forward and just pushes the last ball of the over into the covers, and there's no run. 125 for 3. The sun behind cloud at the moment, but it's a lovely day. We've got the flags blowing to our left there. Don't forget the Ashes archive. I really enjoyed lunch. So I'd love to speak to Bob Messi. It really was. I'm sorry that his ball's no longer in the cabinet and they're in the Lord's Museum, because that was a great thrill, going and admiring those.
16 wickets.
I know. And the ball's swinging all over the place.
He was bowling. I remember watching it on the telly. I mean, he was bowling around the wicket. He was swinging into the right-hander so much he had to go around the wicket, didn't he?
Yes, and likewise similarly away from the left-handers from round the wicket as well. Oh, fantastic. Anyway, bbc.co.uk/Ashes archive to go and access all those memories, and I say you can send us an email. This is on the off stump before it comes Collingwood out to extra cover. Any thoughts that you have on all of that? tms@bbc.co.uk, wherever you are in the world. And very generously, because we are generous at the BBC, we've given the Australians this text number that you can, if you're in Australia, there is a special number that you can
so it doesn't cost
access.
much.
Well, I don't know, probably hopefully it costs rather more. But anyway, no, I don't know what it costs, frankly, but it must be a local number to Australia.
It'll be a bargain.
It will be a bargain. The number is 199 21 222. 199 21 222. Siddle bowls outside the off stump, and Collingwood lets it go by. And David, I mean, you're a country boy, aren't you, Victor? You're an old farmer. Well, he's enjoying the cricket on his tractor, ploughing in the corn stubble. I don't know what time it is in Toowoomba, but he must have his headlights on.
I hope he's got his headlights on.
Yeah. Well, keep going, David. Well, they have pretty big farms out there, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking millions of acres, so perhaps you do have to go during the night.
I think they do nowadays. These contractors, even in this country, I was taken aback the other day. I mean, they were silaging at midnight just down the road.
Siddle bowls on the off stump. A checked drive from Collingwood coming forward, playing to it off. You're an old gentleman farmer, Victor. That wouldn't be quite your scene, would it?
No, I wasn't. I've never been a farmer.
Bad news from Hobart, where apparently it's frosting up, according to Grant. 2 degrees. So, well, keep warm if you're in Tassie, which actually is featuring rather strongly in this test match, isn't it, Tassie? We've got Hilfenhaus and Ricky, of course. There's another Tas region too, isn't there, Ian? I'm racking my brains as to which one it is. I think there's 3 in there. And Scott's on the road between Sydney and Canberra. There we go. He's backing Katich to score lots of runs in this series. You drive carefully, Scott. Nice drive there, actually, through the Blue Mountains, isn't it? And down to Canberra. Siddle's on his way. Bowls. The sun's out again. Hits Collingwood on the pad. This one drifting down the leg side, and fielded by Hussey, who looks very busy there in the gully. 125 for 3.
Ricky Ponting's a Tasmanian who has lived in New South Wales for quite some time.
I wasn't going to mention that bit though, but I mean, factually, he's a Tassie, isn't he?
He plays for Tasmania when he plays, but he has lived in Sydney for, have to be 3-4 years probably, or maybe even more than that. Yeah. Since he got married, anyhow, I think. Yeah.
He married a Sydney sider.
Yep.
Siddle runs in powerfully, bowls outside the off stump. A tempting line and length, but Collingwood lets it go by. Collected by the wicket-keeper. 125 for 3. Crowd quiet at the moment. And just enjoying it, I think. I think it's a big sort of sigh of relief, really. The first session's over. I'm sure the administrators at Cardiff have breathed a sigh of relief too. Well, phew, okay, it's all right now, everything's okay. And the sun's shining. And I think let's get on and and enjoy the cricket. It's been Australia's day so far. 125 for 3. Siddle's bowled well and deserves to have taken a wicket, but it hasn't done yet. In he goes and bowls short with a bit of a grunt, and that's forced off the back foot by Collingwood, straight to extra cover. And there's no run. 125 for 3. But it's great to hear from Bob Massey during lunch, wasn't it?
Was good, yeah,
really nice.
Yeah. No, very good broadcaster himself.
I've worked with him many times,
for a long time. Yeah. And very good analyser of a session. Which is a terrific art as a radio commentator.
One thing I meant to talk to you about in that game, 72, was the man he talked about for a while was Dennis Lillee.
Yeah.
Who you watch the film now of Dennis, and we're used to that beautifully controlled run and everything else. He was like a wild thing in 72, wasn't he? I mean, arms pumping, hair flowing.
I described him. He would love to remember those days when his hair was flowing.
Yes.
But I described him as a guy. He's running up in those days he looked like a guy who was trying to elbow his way through a crowd. The elbows were flying out that way. He then went and had sprint coaching from Austin Robertson Senior, and that's when he became a much had the beautiful flowing run up. Much better then.
Here's Hauritz, and there's a little sweep there, little paddle sweep from Pietersen for a single down a deep backward square leg. Siddle fields, 126 for 3. Now he was like a mad thing running him, wasn't he? I mean, full of aggression, great to watch.
Yeah, fantastic. As long as you weren't 22 yards away, it was great to watch.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why Pietersen is bothering with. I mean, he top-edged the sweep earlier on. He played that silly little paddle sweep. I mean, I say silly because it's got to be a premeditated thing. And I really don't think that a batsman of his class needs to take those risks against a bowler like Hauritz. Why give Hauritz an opportunity to take a wicket?
Here he comes again, over the wicket, bowls, Collingwood forward. Ball trickles away for Haddin to field there, coming from behind the stumps. And what's Ponting up to? He's having a chat with Alim Dar about something.
Clarke.
It's Clarke, I said Michael Clarke, sorry, yes. So what's that all about? Definite chat. It looks as if Alim Dar called him over.
No, I think he initiated it, Michael Clarke.
Well, he's back again now at slip, with his hands on his knees. And there's Hauritz. Played forward into the leg side, and the bowler can field.
The other reason why it's a mystery to me that Pietersen's playing that way, because I think it's a terrible field for an off spinner. I mean, there's no way that an off spinner can keep a decent batsman on strike for very long at all. You've got an acre paddock on the leg side to just keep playing the ball.
Yeah. There's a long on deep square leg and a deep backward square leg. That turned, and Collingwood came forward there, a little bit surprised, I think. I didn't turn particularly fast, but it certainly spun enough to make people think certainly right that England picked 2 spinners, and that actually did bounce a little bit too. Hit him up on the thigh pad.
Yeah, he had the seam placed nicely there to get the turn and a bit of bounce.
Well, that's an encouraging sign. And he comes again, bowls, and that's played away, punched away off the back foot by Collingwood for a single to long on. But it's a bit of a betrayal, really, of what Ponting thinks about Hauritz as a bowler, frankly. I mean, there's no one catching it forward short leg, although the ball is turning slowly. A long on, a deep backward square, deep square leg, and it's one man saving the single.
But I mean, what's wrong with Hauritz then? Why doesn't Hauritz say, "Listen, mate, I can't bowl to this field. Don't give me this." I want a field that I can bowl to. Yeah. It's a horrible field, because if I was a batsman, I'd just be saying to myself, well, if you want to give me runs, thank you, I'll take them, and there'll be absolutely no risk in the batting. Somehow or other, you've got to put some risk in the batting.
They brought in a short, fine leg now, saving the single. Hauritz bowls, and that's turned away just to Ponting there at mid-wicket. And there's no run. 127 for 3 at the end of the over. Again, just promising signs there if you're a spinner in the game. That little bit of grip, little bit of turn, and some bounce. And Pietersen and Collingwood gather mid-pitch to have a bit of a conflab. Likewise, Ponting and Clarke are doing the same thing there. Ponting's shining the ball, be chewing his gum, no doubt. There's a big gum chewer is Ricky. He's got the knack of being able to talk, which is quite a hard thing, isn't it? When you're chewing gum, he can still talk quite clearly despite it. I always find, I'm not really a gum chewer, but I made it it would come out.
What, you think doing 2 things at once would be very difficult for an Australian? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, really. Well, possibly, if I'm being honest. I'd better go, because it's time for another Australian.
I think it's definitely time for you to go.
So who's coming in? Chris Trisher's coming in after this ball. No, but it always stays in his mouth, which is
while he's talking. Yeah.
No,
I don't know, but I would imagine that would be difficult to do.
Yeah. 127 for 3. Siddle starts the 37th over. In he goes and bowls a big in-swinger, which is turned away by Collingwood in the end. It did swing, and Collingwood wasn't expecting that. He picks up 2 down to deep backward square leg. England moved to 129 for 3, and here's Christopher.
Thank you, Angus. I'll do my fair dinkum Aussie if you want me to, mate, but I think I'll leave that to Chuck next to me.
Stick with your own accent, thanks, Christopher.
Where did dinkum come from?
Oh, I don't know. That's Richie Benaud's very good at. You ask him, where these probably more with cricket sayings and things like that. But no, I'm not sure. I have to Google that one.
In goes Siddle and buzz outside the off stump. Straight, gun barrel straight through the keeper. No stroke from Collingwood, and England remain 129 for 3. Somebody did years ago kindly send me a book, or give me a book actually, of Australian colloquialisms. Yeah. I'm just trying to remember the word that I'd queried on there that started it all off. I can't remember it. But somebody also asked me yesterday what the origin of Yorker was, and these things tend to go in one ear and out of the other, I'm afraid. I assume it was somewhere in Yorkshire. In goes Siddle and bows through outside the off stump. Somebody will email in and tell us that one. I'm sure they will.
A lot of people used to call my grandfather, because he was Victor York Richardson.
Oh, yes.
They used to call him Yorker. It was sort of one of his nicknames, but that was nothing to do with his bowling ability.
Did he bowl at all? Seriously?
I've never heard him talked about as a bowler. I mean, Vic could do everything. I mean, he played every sport under the sun, so I can't imagine that he couldn't bowl, but he didn't. Certainly his test record, he didn't bowl at all, I don't think.
No. Siddle from wider of the crease bows the right-handed Collingwood, who's forward correctly, bat and pad together, pushing it to mid-on. Sun trying to come out again. Trees just tossing gently in the breeze at the far end, but none of the violent, swift changes of weather that we've been having in the last few days. Thank goodness. And this outfield has taken quite a lot of rain in the last few days, but it's all gone through this magical new drainage system, which is on all the main grounds now, or in the process of going there. In comes Siddle again and tempts Collingwood into a drive with a wide ball, which he plays with most of the middle of the bat, a bit more convincingly than Bopara did a couple of times when he was drawn into driving outside the off stump, sliced over the gully.
Siddle will be encouraged. He's getting the ball to swing a bit. Early in the over, he got one that swung very late back into Collingwood, and that one just sort of drifted away a little bit. It finished probably a bit wider than what Siddle would have liked, but the fact that he's actually getting the ball to swing both ways would be quite encouraging.
Definitely. Maybe that breeze is helping a bit. It's certainly not humid here. In comes Siddle and gets that to cut back into the right-hander. Taken in line with about middle of the leg, I think, by Haddin at the end, having been left behind outside the off stump by Collingwood. If you've just joined us, England won the toss. They've lost. Cook caught Hussey, bowled Hilfenhaus 10. Strauss caught Clarke, bowled Johnson 30. And Bopara caught Hughes, bowled Johnson 35. Had you seen Bopara in the flesh before?
2020, yes. Not in a test match, but I watched quite a bit of his stuff against the West Indies. I'm impressed with him. I think he's a good young cricketer, but I'm not sure what he's watching. He just didn't pick up the slower ball at all from Johnson, and not just on the occasion that he got out a couple of times earlier. He just didn't pick it at all. I mean, as a batsman, you've got to be watching, because I'll guarantee you that the bowler will give you some sort of sign that he's changing his pace, and Bopara's got to pick that up, and he's better start doing it quickly.
Actually, having played so much 2020, you'd think he'd be alive to it. Here is Hauritz continuing. His first ball is just played against such spin as there was, down through the gully by Pietersen, just waited for the ball to come onto the bat, steered it down for a single, which takes him to 22, level with Collingwood, 130 for 3. And Matt Hobson tells us on an email that dinkum is actually an English term from the East Midlands. I don't know how you know that, Matt, but thank you very much. There's Hauritz creeping in again, buzz outside the off stump, and barely any turn at all, left alone by Collingwood. Hauritz relatively tidy today, and I get the impression he's not giving it quite as much air as he did at Worcester or Hove. He comes in and bowls quite flat and quickly, and he's just played into the offside with not much foot movement by Collingwood. As far as extra cover, no run. Overcast again at Sophia Gardens. Hauritz with a slip and a forward short leg. Bowls to Collingwood, who moves his feet to get to the pitch of this and just steers it into the ground on the offside. Hauritz feels off his own bowling.
The problem for Hauritz is his field placing. I think there's way too many easy singles. Not quite as many for Collingwood as there is for Pietersen, but there's still too many. He can't be giving easy singles away.
Hauritz from the river end bowls to Collingwood, who goes back and plays towards mid-on. Well bowled, Nathan. So somebody, probably Brad Haddin, from behind the stumps. And by Doctrove at the far end. Haddin spins himself a couple of catches and then comes in again, right arm over, and bowls outside the off stump. Collingwood square cuts against the spin, not right out of the middle, but he gets a run along the ground to deep backward point. And England go to 131 for 3. Another suggestion about fair dinkum, James Montague, according to the Urban Dictionary, originates from when Captain Cook first landed in Australia. Well, he came from Yorkshire, not the East Midlands. When they used to drink the toast, would be fair drinking. And the saying has evolved from there. Oh.
So it was you Englishmen that taught us to drink, was it? That gave us all those bad habits.
Taught you to speak the language and drink.
And drink, yeah.
Yeah, I think they put away a bit of rum on those voyages. The only way to keep sane, I think.
Well, when you see the size of the boats as well, I mean, I've just been to the museum at Harrow in Victoria, where the commemorating the first Australian side that came here, the Aboriginal side, in 1868, right. And you see the bunks and you think to yourself, what, 3 months in those? I don't know how they survived. They did well to just survive.
They did. In comes Johnson and Bowes outside the off stump, taken low by Haddin, no stroke from Collingwood. In fact, sadly, a lot of that team didn't survive very long after the tour, did they?
One guy, I think, I can't remember who it was, but he died in England.
In England,
yeah.
Right.
And there were, I think, a couple that passed away not long afterwards. But a remarkable performance. I mean, just when you think about the environment that they've been taken from, you put them on the boat for so long, and then come to play in England in totally different conditions to what they played in. An incredible performance just to survive.
Amazing. Johnson Bowes again, that slinging action over the wicket, left arm, and Collingwood plays it from just outside the off stump, off the front foot to mid-off, and there's no run. Quiet period at the moment. Yes, it was such a long tour, and they had to entertain the crowd with much more than just cricket. We got more offerings here. Melvyn Bragg's The Adventure of English, the biography of a language. Dinkum comes from the English Midlands and meant work. Fair dinkum referred to a fair day's work and subsequently fair play. Now that's more like it, I would think. In goes Johnston, Buzz outside the off stump. Perhaps he got a fair drink at the end of a fair day's work and fair pay, but the cries you're hearing are a suggestion that might be a wide, I think, but that was a 2020 wide, maybe. Fair dinkum was a response of the early Chinese gold miners to the question, are you finding a fair amount of gold? Because din gum means good gold. So over time, the expression has become a positive response to a good news story. In comes Johnson Bowes outside the off stump, taken by the keeper, where you can take your fair money and take your choice, really. But a few suggestions there. Possibly a case of what's the expression? Enough head or enough said. 131 for 3 here as the sun's coming out again. The day's play slightly in the balance, but Australia, having lost the toss, probably the more pleased of the two at the moment. As Mitchell Johnson bowls from close to the umpire over the wicket to the right-handed Collingwood, who leaves it alone.
Yeah, I always thought as a captain, if you got 3 wickets in the first session of a test match, I always felt you were pretty well on the way to winning the game. Obviously, that would depend on the pitch. If it was a pitch with plenty in it, then maybe 3 wasn't quite enough. But on a normal Test match pitch, if you had 3 down at lunch, I always thought you were well on the way to winning the game.
I think that's more often than not true. Johnson goes in and bowls to Collingwood, who drives or half drives to mid-off, and there's no run. Johnson settling into a steady rhythm now, and Collingwood biding his time and playing sensibly. Both batsmen 23 not out. Cook 10, Strauss 30, Bopara 35, the men out. Certainly, I think if ever side is bowled out on the first day, they generally lose the game, don't they?
Yeah, although I mean, I'm not against moderate first innings totals. I think they're good for the game of cricket, particularly if both sides have decent attacks and they're pretty evenly balanced. But if you go back to that 72 series that we were talking about earlier on, one of the reasons why that was such a good series, most of the first innings totals, in fact all of the first innings totals, I think you'll find were 275 to 315, so in that sort of range. So the game was well and truly open, and the first innings didn't eat up too much time in the game as well. So, you know, I think that helped to make it a good series.
Hauritz from the river end bowls to Pietersen, who comes forward, pushes square on the onside, and Haddin scoops the ball back, and Pietersen, for the second time, handles the ball, accepting the return and flicking it on to Clarke at slip.
He's looking very casual against Hauritz. I'm not sure.
I'm sure he's
not being a bit too casual.
Sooner or later, he's going to come down the pitch and try to hit him into the river. He goes forward, but am I right in saying, did you watch the Worcester game, that Hauritz is pushing it through a little bit more?
Well, Hauritz, he mixes his pace up a little bit, but he's more a curver of the ball than a spinner. When he's bowling really well, I've seen him bowl some good spells where he really drifts the ball away from the right-handers, gets it to spin back a little bit. But
a la Fred Tipner's all those years ago, he comes in our bowls, and that's just pushing to the offside.
I think I'm not even sure that Pietersen isn't perhaps trying to send a message to Ponting here that I'm not going to do anything while you've got the long on there. Bring him up and challenge me, and then I might try and hit him over the top.
Ponting may not be in the mood to oblige, nor Hauritz, who comes in and bowls. Pietersen drives this along the ground, just past his right hand and on to long on for a single. Take the score to 1-3-2 for 3.
We had that long period in Adelaide when this pair, Collingwood and Pietersen, were batting, where Shane Warne went around the wicket and just bowled behind his legs, and Pietersen just said, blow you, I'm not playing them, just let him go. And it's almost he's sort of in that sort of mood at the moment.
Yes, I don't think he wants to throw it away. Hauritz bowls and Collingwood pushes out on the onside. It's certainly not been a memorable innings from Pietersen yet, but he's still there. The longer he stays at the crease, obviously, the more dangerous he becomes. Hauritz spins himself a couple of catches and comes in off about 5 or 6 paces and bowls to Collingwood, who comes studiously forward, blocks it to Katich at forward short leg. Quite overcast now, and Siddle to continue at this end.
Ponting just talking with Hauritz now, and he's pointing in the direction of mid-on. I don't know whether he's suggesting to him, because he's brought mid-on up for Collingwood. He keeps him back virtually on the boundary for Pietersen. I don't know whether he was sort of saying, do you want to bring him up for Pietersen and challenge him? But I think that wouldn't be a bad idea, because I think Pietersen's in a mood where he's not 100% locked in at the moment, and maybe it wouldn't be a bad time to just challenge him, toss one up, bring mid-on up and see if he does want to try and hit one into the River Taff.
Absolutely. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Here's Johnson leaning to one side. He bowls a bouncer. Pietersen was coming onto the front foot, had to duck smartly. It went down the leg side.
I was interested in Pietersen's comments when Mitchell Johnson said that he was going to try and get some lifting deliveries up into the ribcage of the England batsman. Pietersen, I thought his response was very good, saying, well, I don't mind that, because I can tuck the ball away on the onside for runs, or I can pull it. And Johnson's used to the bounce in Australia, but he'll get different bounce over here.
Yeah, he's got 2 men back as he bows to Pietersen, who plays too early at that, getting up onto his toes, expecting more bounce and pace. And they might have pinched a single there if they'd been really alert, because the throw came in from extra cover, hit the stumps and cannoned off. And certainly in a one-day game, it was Hauritz fielding that. They almost certainly would have run a run. Pietersen with his open stance, slightly opened out further for the left arm over bowler. Johnson, who comes in past Alim Dar, bowls down the leg side, inviting him, I presume, to pull in the air to deep square leg or long leg, but Pietersen ignored the temptation. We've got a bit of stalemate at the moment.
The difference in bounce between Australia and England, the fast bowlers, even someone as fast as Mitchell Johnson, he's got to pitch it shorter to get the ball up to that, up under the armpit sort of height. In Australia, Johnson can do that off a pretty decent length, but in England, he's got to pitch it shorter, which gives the good batsman like Pietersen more time to play the pull shot.
Yep. Johnson bowls to him, and that's on the leg stump, and he flicks it away, not with a pull but a turn of the wrists, and he's coming back for the second. He's very, very quick between the wicket and gets there comfortably, although it went virtually straight to the man out at square leg, Hughes.
Yeah, Hughes, Pietersen picked his man pretty well. Hughes hasn't got a strong arm, and there's quite a long boundary out there, so even though Hughes had the ball in his hand when Pietersen was just completing the first run, he went back and got back for the second quite comfortably. He is quick, but Hughes hasn't got a strong arm.
No, and also because there's a long way. They're big square boundaries. Johnson bowls outside the off stump. No stroke from Collingwood, so England remain 134 for 3. Pietersen 25, Collingwood 23. 2 wickets for Johnson so far, 1 for Hilfenhaus. Australia leaving Stuart Clark out. Did that surprise you?
Not really. He's coming back from an injury. I don't think he's got the zip back yet totally. It was quite a serious elbow operation. So, and I think also the fact that this bowling attack did it for them in South Africa.
Yep. Johnson again from this Cathedral Road end, and Pietersen plays a very characteristic stroke, getting high and turning the ball towards wide mid-on off the back foot, just making that into 2 runs really, rather than just playing it in defence as many a batsman would have done. 136 for 3. He goes up to 27 now, Collingwood 23, and these 2 retrenching, but they needed to, frankly. 97 for 3 at lunch wasn't very clever. 90 for 3 at one stage.
No, you'd have to definitely say with England winning the toss that Australia had the better of that first session, and I think they would have been absolutely delighted with 97 for 3 at lunch.
I know why you were such a good player, Ian, with quick reactions. I've just spilt some coffee, and you were up out of your seat with great alacrity. Happily, it hasn't, I think, damaged any clothes. In comes Hauritz, and it's pushed off the back foot to mid-on by Collingwood. I do apologise for my columnist comes in it.
I'm not sure it's done much for the equipment, though. Christopher maybe didn't get any clothes, but it's got a lot of equipment, and electricity and liquid don't go well together, mate. So if I suddenly leave in a hurry, you won't be surprised, will you?
It was quite an expensive cup of coffee too, and a very good one. I was just trying to get a quick sip between comments. Anyway, my apologies. 137 for 3. Hauritz just waiting because Pietersen is checking on the leg side field. Still got a long on back as Hauritz bowls, and Pietersen come down the pitch and miscues into the offside. Not quite sure whether that came off bat or pad. He was right down, however, looking for the lofted drive. And a little moral success there for Hauritz. It turned into his pads, actually.
Well, that's why I think they should be challenging Pietersen a bit more. He beat him in the flight there by tempting him.
Up he comes again now. Pietersen this time goes back and plays a late cut to a ball that wasn't all that short, but it was a good stroke. Safe enough perhaps on a slow pitch like this, bit risky on a quicker one. Gets him 2 runs. Mopping up operations are giving Shilpa a job. She's not really got one to do at this sort of stage of the day. And our engineer Brian Mack as well. We've got a lovely clean surface here now. In comes Hauritz, and Pietersen goes for the sweep. Doesn't get it out of the middle. Paddles it round for a single to Siddle at long leg. And the score goes up to 139 for 3. And Pietersen to 30, and that is a 50 partnership between these two. Exactly 50 put on, and as I say, badly needed. Hauritz again from the River Taff end. Bowls to Collingwood, who plays into the offside to extra cover. And gets an easy single, one of those big gaps that Ian was talking about. And that's the end of the over. The mopping up's completed, so players, I can let you in now. It's Jim. Thank you very much for your assistance, ladies and gentlemen. Can you say something?
Nice of the perpetrator to leave it to the 2 Australians, isn't it? Yeah. This is. Thank you very much, Christopher. We've got a much tidier box now. That's about the one thing that we have gained from it. The players just taking drinks now. 50 partnership between Collingwood and Pietersen has retrieved the situation a bit for England. Some good bowling. I think Siddle has probably been the most impressive. He hasn't got the figures. Johnson has got the figures, but really outside of the couple of wickets that he took and a few other deliveries in that period where he got the 2 wickets, Mitchell Johnson hasn't been that impressive, but Siddle has troubled the batsman all day, and I think that Hilfenhaus is the guy who's got better and better as the day went on. He started out a bit slowly, but once he got the ball just starting to swing it away a little bit, he found his rhythm, and I think he also has bowled quite well. The introduction of Hauritz, I've spoken about the field placings before. I think they're making life very difficult for Hauritz. I think there's way too many easy 1s and 2s there, and it's sort of showing up in this last period where it's taken a lot of the pressure off England, and the 2 batsmen have looked a lot more comfortable.
Nice to see everything's dry after that unfortunate spillage here. And we've got everything sorted out. The boys are having a drink out in the middle of the ground.
CMJ's gone for a drink now. I think he's going to try and have a cup of coffee now.
The flood. It was a wonderful flood. Luckily, it didn't quite get into all the bits and pieces of wiring here. Otherwise, we'd probably be electrocuted. It's interesting to see, Victor, the ground staff out there, because there have been a few moles or something digging away at the turf. You'll notice on either side of the stumps at this broadcast and the Cathedral Road end, large chunks have come out of the turf just behind the stumps. It's not actually on the pitch, but it's where the back foot of Mitchell Johnson and Siddle either side has been landing, and they've actually ripped out quite a bit of turf. A bit like a large golf divot on either side.
Yeah, well, they came out with some mallets and they were hammering away. Obviously, if you're bowling at Johnson's pace, around about 90 miles an hour, you want to make sure that your footing is secure as you get into your delivery stride.
Well, they've done some repair work down there, pounding away, and the game's going to continue with 3 for 141. It's a little bit cooler at the moment than it was earlier when there was some sunshine around. And here's Mitchell Johnson. He runs into Collingwood, who just eases forward and knocks the ball down into the gully. It's a slow pitch, and it's been variation of pace as much as anything else that's got some wickets here today, with the Strauss deceived by a ball from Johnson that got onto his gloves. He was all in a flurry, and he popped up a catch, and then Bopara totally deceived by Johnson's change down ball, about 80 K's, and from his bat it popped up in the air to Hughes at point. Johnson bowls to Collingwood. He flicks him away off his pads to backward square, and he'll get a couple of runs. There are a couple of men in the deep. Phillip Hughes collecting the ball in front of the big crowd in the open stand out on that far side, and Collingwood knocking the ball into the gaps as 27. Pietersen hasn't quite challenged the bowling as we'd expect as yet. He's been holding himself back a bit after another sketchy start. A couple of near run-outs, a couple of near misses. Three for 143. Johnson runs in, and again Collingwood just eases onto the front foot. No real pace in this pitch with a softening ball, and he sends it quietly towards north and the covers.
I think that's a pattern with Pietersen and a lot of players actually, that when they come in they want to assert themselves and they're very excitable. They play perhaps quite a few shots and they run in harem-scarum fashion, but when they feel secure, and I think Pietersen is feeling fairly secure now, they actually draw back. They play fewer shots. They're more convinced that if I just play normally, I'll stay here. So he's in that tranquil period at the moment. England hope he'll stay there for some time.
Johnson close to the stumps, but wide outside the off stump as he releases, and Collingwood allows it to go through. Yes, they're getting into a rhythm, I think, particularly Collingwood.
Yeah, and, I'd just like to emphasise the point Ian Chappell was making about Hauritz, who's bowled okay, but if you have so many fielders protecting the boundary, the batsman is not going to bother to take a risk because he doesn't have to, and he'll just tickle it around for ones and twos, and your figures will look okay, but you've got to make them take a risk as a spinner. Give them the option of playing the big shot occasionally.
Johnson bowls on the angle, and another leave from Collingwood. Well, we saw that even with Shane Warne in the last series. They'd often have a man at deep point or somewhere in the deep, maybe not long on, but it was as if there's this thought, and we don't want to give away easy boundaries, but surely with an off spinner, mid on up, okay, if he wants to have a crack at you, let him. See
and if he succeeds, you'll have to bow to, but he's got to earn the right to have that. Even Pietersen, I reckon, has got to earn the right to have a fielder at long on right from the start. It's a bit different with someone like Warne.
Johnson bowls, and Collingwood's forward pushes away on the offside. I'm sure it's part of the Australian overall strategy as the over comes to a completion at 3 for 143 is to try and stop the batsman getting into a flow, and that's the way they're looking at it. And if they slow the game down long enough, they'll believe that the batsman's going to make a mistake.
Well, I'm not so sure that works anymore. I don't think batsmen are that stupid. I think Collingwood, for example, would love the field back because he doesn't have to take a risk. Even Pietersen, I think he acknowledges the fact, let's have a look what they've got now.
You're going to have deep square leg, and long on is going out again.
Yes, the long on, and maybe that man at sort of forward square leg.
Deep point? Do you need deep point?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 on the boundary.
Now Hauritz bowls a ball. It's just a little short, and Pietersen's of a mind here, as I think Victor's been suggesting, to just play. Nothing ambitious.
As a bowler, I would rather go for 1 4 in an over than 4 singles. Because at least you're challenging if you're bowling well, you're challenging the batsman to take a bit of a risk.
Hauritz bowls, and that hits the pad. Pietersen says, no, not interested, not offering, and kicks the ball away around the corner. So this is the Pietersen-Collingwood pairing that played so well in Adelaide. They're getting themselves in at the moment. They've got beyond 50 for this wicket. Hauritz goes in. Across he stumps. He has a fling with a sweep shot and drags it to backward square for a run. Premeditated. Knocked it down around the corner, and Siddle coming in, collected as they went for a single. Pietersen 31, 3 for 144.
What we're also seeing is slow turn, and it's so slow that it's not really threatening. A good batsman just adjust.
Michael Clarke has been rolling his arm over during this over. That slipped. Maybe he's going to come in at some point. Hauritz bowls again, and forward goes Collingwood, smothering, pushing, keeping the ball out of harm's way on the offside. 3 for 144. England winning the toss. Cook made 10. Strauss 30. Bopara 35. 2 wickets to Johnson, 1 to Hilfenhaus. Hauritz goes in quicker, flatter, on the back foot, pushed away with some gentle turn towards Ponting, who's there running from straight mid-wicket towards mid-on. Just 2 men out on the boundary, looking at each other, deep square, deep point, and on the back foot, Collingwood goes with a little bit of turn, a modicum of turn, and collects a single to Siddle at backward square. So it's tidy bowling, but that's all. And it's 3 for 145 at the end of the over.
Yeah, you're right, that's all. As I say, I think at this early stage of an innings, you want them to play a big shot. For instance, even that last delivery there, Collingwood, he's very adept at that, just flicking the ball to square leg, run 1. He's got 2 men, he's got 1 man back just in front of square on the boundary. No, just for a while I would prefer to have that bloke saving the single and say to Collingwood, and he might take up the challenge and he might succeed, but if you want to score runs off me on the leg side, you're going to have to hit the ball through the infield, probably in the air. Now on this sort of surface, you can do that, but the first time you do it, there's risk attached. You don't quite know whether it'll work, and you might get him out. But you're taking away that option by allowing those gentle singles here, there and everywhere.
Here's Johnson bowling on the line wide outside the off stump, trying to get that angle on the outside edge of the bat from Collingwood. So I walked around the ground during the lunch break, and just after I was sitting down at deep backward square with Peter Siddle's parents.
All right.
Who were down there with quite a few Australian supporters scattered around in the crowd, and they're enjoying the atmosphere. It was right about 20 yards from where we used to broadcast, just down in the corner of the ground in the old hut that you were talking about before. Johnson comes in, he bowls again, and Collingwood's back, and he gets himself in a tangle as he was trying to pat it into a gap through square, but he didn't. And it was another dot ball.
Well, with modern punters, if you can pick up 2 or 3 test matches now in the space of 3 weeks, whereas in the old days, there's about 3-week gap between each test match. Which is why, England travel with an army of about 3,000 or 4,000. The Aussies are approaching those numbers now.
Yes, there's quite a contingent here. You can see a big group of them down at that far end of 40 or 50. Here's a bumper from Johnson, which is easily evaded by Collingwood ducking right underneath it. So how will that change if we move, as the ICC is suggesting, to 4-day test matches? Are they going to cramp them up even more?
Maybe.
You have 4 days of 7 hours or 7.5 hours. I mean, in England you could do it, but
I don't think you'd want to do it in England. You make lots of money.
Well, that's right.
The more day in Test cricket in England, by and large, especially when you boys come over, it makes pots of money.
Johnson bowls short, and it's pulled by Collingwood, but there is a man back. That's Hughes. He's at a deep mid-wicket, about 20 in from the line. They took an easy single. So they've got a tactic going there, and they hope that Collingwood might hit a catch. But he's on 29 at 3 for 146. Was that called a no ball, that delivery, Gareth? Well, that wasn't a no ball, was it? Do they call it a no ball? I just showed a replay of Johnson's foot clearly over the line, but I don't think it was called by Alim Dar, who in his other life must have been a bowler. Here comes Johnson, and a ball that's worked off the pads by Pietersen earns him another single out to deep mid-wicket at 3 for 147. I mean, the ICC seem to have all sorts of ideas about how to improve Test cricket, but surely the thing that will improve Test cricket are more pitches that give batsman and bowler a fair share.
Well, that's certainly true. And that's always been my worry about Cardiff. Nothing to do with the logistics of it, but whether the pitch is a type that produces dazzling cricket. Well, we'll wait and see.
Johnson with a couple of slips into gully, tumbles in and bowls a ball that's pushed away again quite comfortably by Collingwood and umpire Alim Dar. Very quietly hands the jumper from Peter Siddle onto Johnson at 3 for 147. Cook was caught brilliantly by Hussey in the gully off Hilfenhaus for 10. Strauss gloved one, misjudging Johnson's bounce and pace. Clarke took it at slip. Strauss made 30, and then Bopara caught Hughes bowled Johnson for 35. 3 for 97 at lunch, so 50 runs added for the loss of not a wicket since. And what's happening with the field? No, Hilfenhaus is being dispatched to long on for Pietersen again.
I mean, I guess they think Pietersen is the man who likes to hit boundaries. Remind everyone about what he said about Murali.
Hauritz bowls to him and he's across the crease and watchfully playing the ball away, trying to knock it into a gap for a run, but Clarke feels for a slip.
Several times he reverse swept Murali at Edgbaston. He said, well, it was the only place I could see to hit him for 4. Now, most batsmen don't think like that against, Muralitharan, but Pietersen does.
Hauritz bowls and he's walking and sweeping, dragging the ball around the corner, getting across his stumps and knocking the ball down, dragging it down with his horizontal bat stroke to get another run. 3 for 148. I mean, there's great risk-reward about his batting. Sometimes there's more risk than reward.
Yeah.
But he can play some amazing shots. We might see them here. Not yet, as Collingwood gets a ball that turns slowly, and he's almost there too soon as he poked it away to Katich at short leg.
Clarke is, that's Michael Clarke, obviously, is warming up vigorously.
Actually, he's been suggesting that he needs a bowl for a few overs. Yeah. As Collingwood shuffles forward again and Hauritz is pushed out on the offside.
Pietersen's had a few problems with left-arm spinners, Yuvraj. Yeah. He can't play Yuvraj.
How does it get out to him, man? Taking him on?
Sometimes. Mm. He hasn't got it to him that often, but he's looked horrible against him.
And here comes Hauritz, he bowls to Collingwood. Collingwood's creeping forward again, playing the ball away on the offside. Can't say it's pretty batting watching Collingwood. It's not attractive, but it's very effective. He plays, as they say, within his limitations and just knocks the ball around the place. That's what he's trying to do at the moment. Just push it around the corner, find a spot to go. Not here. The length is good from Hauritz, coming up near the line of middle and off, and it's pushed away to short leg yet again. 3 for 148 England, and a productive partnership here. And Michael Clarke has got the nod from Ricky Ponting.
It was hilarious in Chennai when Dhoni was captaining India. And England in their second innings, I think, were 2 for 2 in about the third over. Pietersen came out to bat, and he took the pace bowler off at one end and put Yuvraj Singh on
straight away.
Yeah, I don't think Yuvraj got him out, but he played a couple horrible overs. Pietersen didn't know whether to smash him, block him, and he got in a terrible tangle. But that's the measure of Dhoni. I thought it was mischievous from Dhoni. But there also was some logic there that Pietersen was not happy. It may have been a temperamental thing with Yuvraj. It was a meeting of two big egos. Whether that'll apply with Clarke bowling to Pietersen, I don't know. But he has had some peculiar problems with left. He got out to Ben a few times, the tall West Indian left-arm spinner, when you didn't expect him to. And he suddenly, he just missed a ball that went through bat and pad and something like that.
Well, here's Michael Clarke with his little left-arm somethings, and he bowls a ball that's punched off the back foot by Pietersen to deep cover, where Hussey's parading and collecting, and it's 3 for 149. Well,
it's worth a couple overs, isn't it?
The slow bowler with the best average in this side probably won't bowl until the latter part of the innings if he bowls at all, and that, of course, is Katich. Out on the back foot, here's Collingwood playing away towards short mid-wicket. It's extraordinary the number of times he comes on and just picks up a wicket or two because batsmen don't pick him. Clarke, he's got a few good wickets too, and he's got Collingwood skipping down the pitch to greet him and pat the ball back up the offside. Certainly gets the over rate moving along here. This is the 47th of the innings.
Well, we know Ricky Ponting's very concerned about over rates.
Yes. Down the pitch, he has a go, and he hits it high, over mid-off, slicing it down towards the boundary. It's got spin on it, and it's going to pull up very close to the boundary. But that would have been a wonderful shot at Turnberry in the open, because it had beautiful spin on to sit next to the pin. He didn't quite get that, and luckily he got enough of it to clear mid-off and get a couple of runs. Clarke bowls back as Collingwood to push down the pitch, and that that highlighted the slowness of the pitch.
Slowness of the pitch, and also the difficulty of hitting the ball over the top at the start, well, relatively early in your innings. I mean, that was a miss hit. Okay, he didn't get him out, but he only went for 2, and he might have got him out.
Clarke once more, and a ball that's a little short and allows Collingwood to nurse it around the corner. Nicely nurdled, sir, for a single. It's the end of the over. The 150s come up. It's 3 for 152. And Collingwood is now 32. Pietersen 34. Victor, I'll leave it with you. And Henry Blofeld is coming in to tell you more about the excitement, the fluctuation of this game.
Well, it's odd to see Clarke bowling, not because he's not a very good bowler, but I've seen a fair bit of Australia in their build-up to this match, and they played down at Hove and they played at Worcester, and they've been blessed with good weather on pitches not dissimilar to this, a bit quicker perhaps. And Clarke, even though he's played both those games, has barely bowled a ball, but he's been tossed the ball in a test match with his sort of flat skimming left arm spinners. It's worth a try. I don't think England will fret too much. Now suddenly there's been a change of tactics from Ponting. He's stuck 3 men round the bat to Collingwood. Hello, Henry.
My dear old thing, and my dear old thing for everyone in Australia too. Here comes Hauritz bowls, and forward there's Collingwood running that one down wide of slip, but who quickly Clarke pounces on it, and there is no chance of any run. I'm sure lots of our friends in Australia are burning the midnight oil. It's a real fair dinkum battle, as Chris Martin Jenkins would say, fair drinkum battle, this one. Here comes Hauritz, bowls again down the leg side. Collingwood tried to turn that, but not very successfully, and it was really rather half-hearted because he didn't get about anywhere near that one. He could have, if he tickled it, he'd got 4 runs. And we got a slip, silly point, and a forward short leg. So suddenly a bit of pressure being applied. Ponting, by and large, has not put pressure on the batsman when Hauritz has been bowling. He bowls again. Oh, my goodness me. Collingwood comes forward and plays that with an angled bat, and it rolls back off the middle of the bat, not very far from the off stump. It's a sort of rather careless way to get out, and the way that people, when they're well established, can get out. There's always a danger when you get perhaps what are rated as the second best lot of bowlers coming on, of taking them a little too lightheartedly. And it is Hauritz again in, and this time Collingwood goes back, turns it past the square leg umpire, and there's a single in it. There are lots of regulation singles on the leg side, and I'm not certain really with this field that these batsmen are taking them or looking to take them when they where and when they should. 153 for 3. I know it's not a situation where England need to indulge in any excesses, but pushing and looking for singles doesn't involve that. Collingwood's now 33, Pietersen is 34, and is in strike. The silly point disappears, predictably. Hauritz in, bowls, Pietersen's forward, playing that one down to mid-on, and there is no run. We've got a slip, deep backward point, extra cover, deepish mid-off, long on, shortish mid-wicket, forward short leg, deep square and deep backward square. Hauritz in again, bowls, Pietersen goes back, covers up, plays that on the bounce there to Katich at square short leg. There is no run. It's the end of the over. 133 for 3. Pietersen has got 34 and Collingwood has got 33, and the beauties of this new ground here in Cardiff continue to assail us pleasantly, a lovely breeze this afternoon.
It is. I mean, we can see stacks of trees if you look out to the park away towards the city. The stands are full. The sun is shining.
You don't often get as poetic as this.
The only slight problem is the pitch is a bit sleepy.
It is, isn't it? I know. It's Michael Clarke again, up to the wicket, left arm over the wicket, left arm round the wicket, rather, bowls, and that's played out into the covers, north the fielder, and there is no run. Clarke busily back, polishing the ball in his trousers, turns now, here he comes again, bowls to Collingwood, who blows half forward, and his back leg goes across the second line of defence, and again the ball just trickles out a yard or two on the offside, and there is no run. There's something rather homely, rather rural, rather splendid about this ground. And Clarke is in again, over pitches a bit, and Collingwood drives down to deepish mid-off, and they go through for a single. So the score now goes along to 154 for 3, and they are 34 all, Collingwood and Pietersen. And it's Michael Clarke coming in to bowl to Pietersen. He's there now. He bowled. Pietersen stretches forward, just pushes the ball out of the offside. It's Haddin from behind the stumps who comes forward and picks up. Quite a lot of blue sky, sunshine at the moment. Crowd very much in shirt sleeve order. It's a lovely day for the first Welsh day's Test cricket. Clarke bowls again. Pietersen's forwards hit on the knee. He's a long way forward. There was a sort of stifled appeal, a bit of enthusiasm, but I don't think anyone was seriously expecting that one to be given out. The seagull who was flying over the proceedings certainly wasn't. He gave rather a bored look and turned in the other direction. And here now comes Clarke again. That's on the leg stump, and Collingwood pushed it towards the square leg umpire, and they saunter a single. And that's rather the pattern of the cricket. From England's point of view, admirable. They are in no hurry. It's 155 for 3. Collingwood's got, or Pietersen rather, has got 35, and Collingwood's got 34.
Yeah, and it's a sedate period of play, isn't it?
Well, it's sedate, but I think England are consolidating. And I think, the one thing they don't want to do now is lose another wicket for tea.
No, I mean, if I was critical of what's going on out there, I think there are too many little gaps for the batsmen to pick up their ones. I would want to ensure that they have to play the odd big shot, the big drive.
You've been talking to Ian Chappell too much.
Well, no, not enough, perhaps.
no, but you're best doing the same thing. That's all I'm laughing. But they're quite right. I just wonder whether England are actually taking really full advantage of that or not. It's Hauritz again, in from the taff end, and Pietersen sweeps. It's hit on the front pad. There's a big appeal, not out. It was outside off stump. You can see that from here. I don't think there was any chance of that going out, going against the batsman.
Well, he was way outside the line of off stump, I think, and he challenged umpire Doctorow by not moving his leg. He challenged him to say, "How dare you give me out?" And it probably wasn't hitting off stump anyway. It was wide of off stump.
Here is Hauritz again in, bowls to Pietersen. Pietersen goes back, works that one hits into the ground. Katich pounces upon it at forward short leg, and there is no run. It's rather funny seeing the advertisement for that West Indian rum over there. It's none of their business, really, is it? England v Australia.
They've probably paid their dues there.
They have, and it's a jolly good drink too. What not, rum. And bit of a pause now where Pietersen stands rather sort of legs wide apart, looking around the field, and then settles over his bat. And here comes Hauritz again. What's going to happen now? In, and Pietersen tries a sweep. They get one down to short fine leg, and it's Siddle who fields, throws back there on the bounce, nasty one. It was on the half volley really, actually, for the bowler. Hauritz did well to stop it, and if he gave Siddle a bit of a look, you couldn't blame him. But in fact, I don't think he did. Anyway, it is 156 for 3. And 36 now to Pietersen, 34 to Collingwood. 3 men round the bat for Collingwood, slip, silly point and a forward short leg. And Hauritz is in, he's up to the wicket, now he bowls, and Collingwood makes a little bit of room and tries to punch that in the offside. And in fact, it's Ponting there at silly point, who was turning round, taking evasive action. The ball bounced well in front of him and hit him on the backside. So taking evasive out, 2 police horses, look, walking and running, not walking, I mean running. I don't mean running, I mean walking behind the side screen at the far end. And get there in a moment. And here comes Hauritz again. Collingwood's forward steers that delicately away between slip and gully, and they run a single. And it's 156 for 3, 35 Collingwood and 36 Pietersen.
Well, that was a brilliant spot. I can't see them. Was there anyone on their backs?
Yes, there were. You see the advertisement over there that says shore or something.
Yes.
I saw 2 of them walk. I said run when I meant walk, and then I couldn't think what they did. No, they didn't. They were walking very sedately. I mean, they might have been looking for you. Who knows? Here's Hauritz again in, bowls. Forward comes Pietersen, just pushing that back on the offside. It's the end of another over. Lovely when you've got spin at both ends. The overs have got through very rapidly, and this is always nice. Although at this early stage of the match, the pace of overs doesn't particularly matter. And I'm not certain I feel this is going to be a result test match, and I don't think we're going to get to do. Because I don't feel that we're going to get really big scores in this match. Is my own sort of feeling.
Well, before it started, you get asked to do all these quizzes or little draws for, how's the Ashes going to go? Listen. I've put it down as a draw.
Did you? Well, there you are. You're the guru.
Well, we'll see. We will see, Henry.
You're the chap.
I'd just like to point out, I've told you this on the first day.
We all look towards you. Clarke starts a new over, and forward goes Collingwood. Just dab it. That's good running. Dabbed it just square on the offside, and it was Johnson from backward point there who had to move a yard or two to his right, fielded, and by which time they'd taken a single. So 158 for 3. What's one of the complaint about this ground? That scoreboard is perfectly abominable over there. It's very difficult to see, and with the position of this window when it's open, it's almost impossible to see.
Do you want me to shut the window for you?
No, I don't do that, but I just wish they could make things a little bit bigger. And here comes Michael Clarke. He bowls, and Pietersen drives this down to mid-off, and it's they get a single. They had to scamper it reasonably quickly, but there was no great big song and dance about it. And that is, we've reached a landmark. Pietersen.
It's 1,000 runs for Kevin Pietersen against Australia.
Oh, you are quick. We all should have known that, but there we are. The score's 159 for 3, and here is Michael Clarke in bowls to Collingwood, who works us away square on the leg side. Well done. They're now picking up the singles and doing. If you get 4 or 5 singles and over, the scoreboard ticks over all right, doesn't it? And so that's 160 for 3, 37 all, Collingwood and Pietersen. And it's competitive cricket, it's tight cricket, and England are just gradually, having had Australia had the lead at lunch, England have just about got their noses back in front. Michael Clarke in again, Pietersen sweeps and hits this one well, but it goes straight down there to deep backward square leg, and there is just the single in it. So 161 now for 3. Or was it 161 for 3? It goes up a bit belatedly, and Pietersen's 38. And here's Clarke into Collingwood. Collingwood goes back, plays that one on the onside, looking for a single, but didn't hit it quite far enough. And it was wicketkeeper Haddin who went racing after it and put anyone off any idea of a single.
Well, they're quietly in clover at the moment, and they're picking up the runs, as you say, not in a dramatic way.
And it's Clarke again in outside the off stump, and that's cut away in a rather sort of foreshortened, not very attractive way there by Collingwood. He's not a beautiful batsman with many of his strokes, but my goodness me, he's an effective one. And if there's a word that you would apply to Collingwood, it must be concentration. End of the over, 162 for 3, 38 all, Pietersen and Collingwood.
The other thing I think about Collingwood is that I reckon he's a damn good player on slow, low wickets. I think he's particularly suited to that.
Hence Adelaide in 19...
Yeah, well, that would be one. I think he's, technically, any little glitches he's got are not exposed on a pitch where the bounce is low. He's also a canny player of slow bowling, so he's enjoying this. Because he's scoring runs, he doesn't have any risk. Perfect.
I thought I saw a bus, but it was a big white van. Wasn't that sad? Over there on the right. Hauritz starts in again, and this time Collingwood tries to turn it around the corner, sit on the pad, it balloons away. No one pouches it, but Haddin goes back and takes it. And let me give you the scorecards. Strauss caught Clarke, bowled Johnson 30. Cook caught Hussey, bowled. Hang on, look at the ball. Hauritz coming into bowls off the back foot, Forster on the onside. I'll give you the rest of the scoreboard in a moment. So I've just been joined for the first time today by Geoffrey Boycott. Geoffrey, very good afternoon.
Thank you, Henry.
How are you?
I'm all right,
good.
And I'm about like the England batsman. It's no risk cricket, it's easy.
They're doing well, aren't they? And Hauritz in now, bowls, and that one's just pushed away by Collingwood straight to square short leg, and nothing is done.
Well, I must have definitely had moments like this in my test career when one average sort of bowler and one part-time bowler were bowling, and batting was easy.
Well, it is, isn't it? And here comes Hauritz again. There's a big appeal for LBW as Collingwood goes forward, not out, says umpire Dot Rose. And they've been given too many chances to pick up singles, haven't they? I mean,
yeah, it's just a period where I think the batsmen, rather than dominating, just carefully going around, picking up 2.5 and over without any risk, getting England into a better position from sort of 100 to 3 they were, and if they'd lost a couple of wickets, they'd have been wobbling badly.
And it's Hauritz again in bowls, and that's driven powerfully there into the covers, where it is picked up by Hussey, and powerfully and on the bounce. Nice bounce for the fielder. As I said, Cook was caught Hussey, bowled Hilfenhaus for 10, and Bopara caught Hughes, bowled Johnson for 35. They were the other two out in addition to Strauss. And here comes Hauritz again, and Collingwood tries to make a bit of room to hammer that through the offside. Makes the room, doesn't time it, hits it hard into the ground, and it goes again there to Hussey. It's the end of the over, 162 for 3, and 38 apiece to Collingwood and Pietersen, a maiden over.
Yeah, although there's no great threat in the bowling, the problem is, though, that it's not so easy for them to score quickly. The ball's coming on slowly, and it's very easy to lose your patience. You mustn't do that on these sort of slow pitches. You've got to hold your concentration together. Your patience has got to be part of it, because if you're not careful, you can actually make your own mistake rather than the bowler creating one.
Michael Clarke bowls to Pietersen. Pietersen comes forward and sweeps on the full toss. It's going down to fine leg. They run 1 and they come back for 2. And nice throw in there to Haddin, and so England go along to 164 for 3. Yes, this morning we saw 3 wickets going relative shots when batsmen hadn't sort of quite realised that, hadn't they? They hadn't kept their patience.
No, I mean, Cook's was a poor shot. It was a real tentative poke away from his body. I know it was a brilliant catch at Gully, but if you don't hit it there, they can't catch him.
Well, that's right. Absolutely. And here's Clarke again. Pietersen's down the pitch, just pushes forward, and Haddin goes out to square leg and fields. And then Strauss got slightly surprised by one that came on him.
Brilliant bounce.
It was a good one.
Wonderful bounce. He does have the ability. I'm a big fan of. Ever since the first time I saw him, he can bowl really quick deliveries.
And Michael Clarke, and that short, Pietersen goes back, hammers it short mid-wicket, and it's Hussey fielding there, and there's no run.
This is dangerous for Pietersen, because he'll be thinking, Clarke, he's an occasion bowler, I ought to be dominating him.
And he goes and sweeps at that one and misses. There's a stifled appeal behind the start. The ball's gone away for 4 and is 4 byes. And down the leg side, he came forward and swept. Where did that one go, Jeffrey?
Just missed leg stump. It nearly bowled him behind his bottom. And you can watch the replay, and it's very, very close indeed. Look at that. He's got so far over, he's missed it by an inch or two when it went past the stump. Not much.
It was very little, and a difficult one for the keepers, though, and it went, in fact, through Haddin's legs for 4. The second boundary buys he's given away.
Well, it is if you keep like Haddin.
Yes. 168 for 3 is the score, and here comes Michael Clarke again, and this time Pietersen comes forward and drives, doesn't time it at all, goes into the offside, and is fielded in the end by Michael Clarke himself, and there is no run. And Pietersen trying hard to maintain his patience, but this time he drives this through the covers. He's brilliantly stopped there, diving at mid-off, and Pietersen is kept to a single. There's always the single there, but it was nonetheless a fine piece of fielding. The score then goes on to 169 for 3 at the end of that over. Pietersen goes to 41, and Collingwood stays on 38.
I think if you can keep your patience and concentration on these sort of pitches, these slow sort of surfaces, which I've played on many times, if you could not make a daft mistake, not lose your cool, do something silly against what are ordinary sort of filling bowlers, really, eventually what happens, you get so used to the pitch, you play a good shot or 2 like that of Pietersen, somebody dives, saves it, you get 1, not 4. Eventually you'll get a moment of about 15 minutes, 3 or 4 overs, when you pick quite a few runs quickly. They come very quickly. Suddenly 2 or 3 shots you hit all go through the gap, and suddenly you get 15-20 runs very quickly. But you have to actually work at it for quite a while and not give your wicket away, not do something daft, and then you'll get that moment during a session of play where suddenly the scoreboard zips around quickly, 20 runs like lightning.
Well, this is rather the pattern of their partnership in Adelaide, which was a very similar pitch, wasn't it, really, in a way?
I hope they don't play second innings like they did in Adelaide.
Well, Shane Warne isn't playing, so that's something, isn't it? Hauritz coming in now from the taff end. He's there and he bowls, and Pietersen, with a lot of bottom hand, works that one away to mid-wicket, straight mid-wicket, rather square mid-wicket, and they take the single. And it's Hughes coming in off the boundary, though, fields. So 170 for 3 now, 42 to Pietersen. And these two have done a good job for England this afternoon. They just need to stay there until tea time. That's their first objective. Hauritz comes in, 3 men round the bat for Collingwood. Collingwood make a bit of room, hits that one square through the offside, and I think that's going for 4. It was short, and he square cut it away very well indeed, making room and timed the ball well. So that's the first boundary we've had for some time. 170. Difficult to see this score. 174 for 3, and Collingwood's joined Pietersen on 42.
Hit the rubbish, that's what I say. Short and wide, slow pitch, wallop it. You'll get some of those, but you just got to hang around. This is comfort bowling.
And Hauritz again in bowls, and Collingwood forward just running this through gully. It's Clarke, Katich who goes to his left there from Clarke, from first slip, and picks up. Hauritz in once more. He's up to the wicket now. He's there. He bowls, and forward comes Collingwood. Just plays that to Ponting at silly mid-off, or to forward short leg. No, what am I saying? At silly point. We got a forward short leg, a silly point, and a slip there at the moment. 3 men round the bat, and here comes Hauritz again in bowls, and no ball called then, wasn't there? It's strange for someone of Hauritz's pace to bowl a no ball, but he did. Umpire Dotrove sticking out his hand. The score goes on to 175 for 3, and Collingwood just pushed it away on a yard or 2 on the offside. And it's Hauritz again, coming in now up to the wicket. He's there, he bowls, and Collingwood goes back, drops the ball down in front of him. Ponting picks up, and there is no run.
It's a working pitch, this, isn't it? Work.
Hard work.
Not easy to play too many aesthetic shots, but you just work at it, that's all. It's not a difficult pitch at all.
And it's Hauritz once more from the taff end. He bowls, Collingwood makes room, and square cuts that for 4 more. There were 2 gimmies in that over, and he got 8 runs. Exactly what Jeffrey was saying. 179 now for 3, and Collingwood overtakes Pietersen, goes on to 46, and it is at the end of the over, and England just beginning to flex their muscles a little bit, getting the few bad balls which bowlers of this quality are likely to produce, and taking advantage. So 179 for 3, and after a few more words from Jeffrey on how you think this pitch is perhaps going to develop over the next day or 2, it will then be Jonathan Agnew.
Well, I think it'll carry on similar to this. There is slow turn, but it is slow. And I think as the match progresses, it gets drier and drier. We get a little bit more turn, and the footholes will come into play. I think there'll be quite a bit of rough eventually after a few days outside the off stump.
It goes Clarke. Pietersen's down the pitch, driving in for 4. Just past mid-off's left hand. There's nobody there. Beautiful stroke. And a touch of the gloves there from Paul Collingwood. And Pietersen starting to bristle. 46 not out. Collingwood also 46. He used his feet, he came down the pitch, got in the perfect position and hit it very hard indeed. Found that gap.
It's just what I said, you see, suddenly after working and only picking up singles, 3 fours have come.
Clarke again, and that's a sweep from a low full toss down to deep backward square leg, hit pretty hard again. The fielder prevents it going to the boundary. 184 for 3, Pietersen 47, Collingwood 46. They came together at 90 for 3. So a very valuable partnership this in the sunshine in Cardiff in front of a full house.
I think he's let things drift, Ricky Ponting, for me. He should have had a seamer on at one end. There's no aggression, is there? There's no real intent from the bowling.
Clarke again rolls out a left arm spinner. Collingwood bat and pad locked together, comes forward, and it's Katich who fields there under the helmet. He's in the offside. There's a slip. Ponting's at mid-wicket at the moment, walking in. Clarke's on his way again from round the wicket. He bowls on the off stump, and Collingwood again defends a ball of good length.
You'd like a bat against these. I've seen you bat and all.
I think I'd just about get away with these two.
I think you might, and you wouldn't need your crash helmet.
No. Clarke again lobs it up, and that's driven for a long single there into the offside. Hussey some way back. And 185 for 3. It just seems that Ponting doesn't have a huge amount of faith in his spinners. He said rather strange fields for Hauritz, I thought earlier on, with all those gaps in the leg
bowling
side.
Is Hauritz. Listen, it's not quite like Johnny Wardle and Jim Laker bowling, is it?
Well, no. 185 for 3. Pietersen waits again, a flatter one from Clarke, and that's played off the back foot towards long on. He doesn't get there. Clarke able to field it. 185 for 3, heading towards the tea break, about 15 minutes away. What we're going to talk about in that is we are going to hear from Tony Cozier about this potential chaos in the Caribbean, where the West Indies team has gone on strike. They've got a test match starting tomorrow in St Vincent against Bangladesh, and there's no one turned up. So we're going to find out what on earth's going on.
They're not getting paid enough.
Well, I don't know, but they're on strike, and they're rustling around at the moment throughout the Caribbean trying to get some numbers up.
Can't be anything but money, Jonathan, in this age.
Well,
it's all money.
We'll find out. Tony, I think, is actually going to be at Barbados Airport on his way to St Vincent, wondering whether it's worth actually catching the flight or not.
He wants to take his white.
He might have to. Anyway, that's happening up in the tea break. Also, the Australian High Commissioner is at the ground. We'll have a quick chat with him too about cricket and the Aussies and everything else. 185 for 3. Hauritz bowling his off spin outside the off stump, and Collingwood tries to chop it away through the offside, gets a bottom edge, and it's fielded by Clarke, who's now back at first slip again. 185 for 3. Both men on 47. And well, if they get through till tea, it'll be in England's afternoon, following Australia's morning. Hauritz again. Longish run for an off-spinner, floats it up outside the off-stump. Collingwood drives. Ponting fields at extra cover. Hauritz smiles, polishing the ball on the back of his trousers. He's got spiky hair, a bit of gel in there, I would say, helping it stick up as it does. Comes again over the wicket, tossed up, driven up towards mid-off, and Collingwood scurries a single. Throw coming in. 186 for 3. Collingwood goes to 48. What's that grunt for, Geoffrey?
Well, you can only get out if you do something daft against these two, can't you?
Yes, I'd say so. A little bit of a slow turn there. They've got a forward short leg in place, and Pietersen sweeps hard past Katich there, cowering rather at short leg with the helmet on. Hussey tosses the ball back. 187 for 3. Now both men on 48. They're going neck and neck together towards half centuries. .187 for 3. In comes Hauritz. Bowls. Forward comes Collingwood, pushing into the offside. There's no run. Our Australian texters are being busy. I mean, we've got to try and compete with these, I think, back at home. And if you are listening in Australia, as many of you clearly are, you have a special number that you can send a text on. Tell us what you're up to. Tell us what you think of the cricket. Here's Hauritz floating it up. Collingwood forward. Ollie and Debs are in a tent in Catherine, New Territory. Northern Territory, rather. It's nice up there. Really warm. In a tent. A chap called Greenie is listening in an oil rig. Boddington gold mine, wherever that may be, or a drill rig anyway. Love your funny accents, he says.
Yeah, we
bad
think
news, Greenie. It's you that's got the funny accent.
Yeah,
I'm
we
afraid.
think the same about them.
Yeah, we speak proper over here, don't we, Geoffrey?
Absolutely. Well, some of you do.
Where's Boddington then? I don't know Boddington.
Boddington's Ales in Manchester. I don't know Boddington anywhere else. And Boddington Ale, the beer.
Gold mines in Western Australia, one of those places near Kimberley or somewhere. Or don't know. Anyway, good luck, Greenie. Hope you're having a nice time out there. I'd like to be in that tent. Northern Territory.
I'd like to be batting against these two spinners.
Yeah, but you always were dull like that, Geoffrey. You only ever thought about batting.
Hell with the tent and the beer. I'd like a bat against these two, even whatever age I am.
Well, OK.
Crikey me. I mean, they've left England for an hour and what, just patting little spinners around. You've got to be kidding. On the first day of a test match.
Well, he's tuned in to you, Geoffrey, because he's got Siddle back in.
Tuned in? He tuned in an hour ago. Goodness gracious.
Siddle returns from our commentary box end, the Cathedral Road end. And he's going to bowl to Pietersen. Crowd getting a bit raucous, but this fella's a decent bowler. Well, a lot of fire early on today on the slow pitch. Up he comes and bowls on the off stump. Pietersen stands up very nonchalantly, almost disdainfully, and just pats that back to mid-on.
Yeah, now the ball's a bit old. He swung it earlier. I'm sure he'll try and reverse it a little bit, but it's not a good idea to let batsmen get in, get more runs behind the name. That's not smart. From my point of view, watching, if I'm watching as a neutral, that was drifting cricket from Australia's point of view. That was easy cricket for England, comfortable. Just knock it around.
From 90 for 3, they were in trouble then. Siddle moves in, bowls. Pietersen flicks that away from about middle and off, I'd say, down towards deep backward square leg. Collides with Siddle in a friendly way. It wasn't a hostile collision. And he completes a single. 188 for 3.
When it's a slow pitch like this, Jonathan, you can work the ball easier because you've a little more time to turn your hands and open your face of the bat. You can manoeuvre it. Someone like Javid Miandad was playing, he was getting to run the ball here. He had fantastic hand.
188 for 3.
I must say there might have been a few fights as well.
For sure.
With Javid.
He used to play here, of course, didn't he, for Glamorgan? In goes Siddle, bowls outside the off stump. Collingwood back into line, plays up to extra cover. And there's no run. Just a slip in a gully now, and the man out there on the hook, deep backward square leg. Quite a change, really, in terms of the aggression of that field.
You see, I think on these slow pitches like this, when batsmen first come in, you've got to attack them, keep at them, be aggressive, it's got to occupy your mind about getting them out, because once you don't get them out, they get 20-odd runs and they get in. It's difficult to prize them out.
Siddle, that comes cutting back from round about the off stump, hits Collingwood up on the thigh pad. It's picked up by Hussey. 188 for 3. Tea 10 minutes away. It's been a very enjoyable first day today. In goes Siddle again over the wicket. Back goes Collingwood. Some tremendous wigs around on show. I can see a chap there with a golden one. Must be an Australian supporter, I think, with a big beard and sunglasses on. In goes Siddle. Bowls on the off stump. And Collingwood very deliberately gets behind that. Plays into the onside. And Mr. Dar calls over. The first of Siddle's for a while. The first of any pace for a little while too. Actually, Gareth's got the bowling figures down there. Might have a little look at them, Gareth, if we can do that. That's okay. Gareth Watkins on duty here today because Malcolm Ashton can't be with us today. He's back tomorrow. So big day for Gareth, who's a regular scorer down here in this part of the world, and sheets of paper and so on. Very tidy scorer, actually. One of the more tidy ones we have. It comes with all these books and things that Malcolm and the old Bill did, of course. The beers out there amongst the Australian supporters. There seem to be 2 pockets of them. There's one's in green and gold at the far end, and then another collection of them in gold shirts. Hauritz is going to continue, though he hasn't really looked dangerous, I must say. 188 for 3.
Oh, he's a lovely bowler if you're batting. He hits the middle of the bat regularly.
Let's have a little look at Gareth's figures here. Johnson 2 for 45, Hilfenhaus 1 for 27. Here comes Hauritz bowling outside the off stump. Pietersen will get a 50. Sweeping that into the leg side, just dragging it around really. And he's looked busy from the moment he first came in. That's his 15th Test 50. His wife is here, I see, with a different colour hair the last time I saw her. And Pietersen shows his back to the crowd. 95 balls and 3 fours for his 50 not out. Hauritz again bowls, and Collingwood sit on the pad, almost getting through. At least Hauritz thought so. Started an appeal left leg before wicket, but there's a hard sound of inside edge. Siddle's bowled 14 overs for 50. Hauritz so far 13 overs for 37. And Clarke bowled those 5 overs for 20. Thank you, Gareth. 189 for 3. Collingwood on 48. Waits as Hauritz comes in and bowls so much flatter one outside the off stump. Back he goes, chopping that away for a single. He goes to 49. And the 100 partnership comes up between Collingwood and Pietersen from 199 balls, having been 90 for 3 to now 190 for 3 on a sunny afternoon, and the smile returning to the faces of those England supporters in the ground at the moment. Still got a long way to go though. Got 2 spinners in the side. They want to score lots of runs in this first innings. A no ball swept down to fine leg by Pietersen. 192 for 3.
To get a free hit, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? I've always wanted that, like one day cricket. Can you imagine Michael Holding bowling at you in a test match, giving you a no ball and a free hit? Oh, it's a lovely dream.
Would you like it?
I'd love that.
Here's Hauritz bowling, Collingwood forward. That's picked up by Haddin. I always hated it when a fast bowler bowled a no ball.
Oh, well, I'd have loved it if you could have had the free hit that you're now getting one day. Can you imagine all those ducking and weaving of short balls, and then you got a free hit to come?
I've tended to find I played it the same way as a free hit or not, actually.
Yes, which is running to square leg.
Well, it's quite a good view from there. In comes Hauritz bowls, and that's turned away just in front of Katich there at forward short leg. It was uppish, a little punch there from Collingwood, turning it away. I had rather an ignominious dismissal here once, actually, Geoffrey. I got to a very good 30 playing against Glamorgan a long time ago. There used to be sort of a drain that ran across the middle of the pitch, do you remember?
I did. Gregory Armstrong used to try and hit it all the time he was bowling.
Yes. Well, here's Hauritz again, bowling over the wicket. Collingwood defends it, plays it back to the bowler. It's the end of that over. 192 for 3. Well, it's right along the middle of the pitch, remember? Right. And I got to 30, and they brought back A.A. Jones, the big grunting fast bowler, do you remember?
Yes.
Middlesex, Glamorgan. Played for quite a few counties, didn't he? Somerset.
Yeah.
Came tearing in from this end. I thought, might give myself a little bit of room here. And he hurled this thing in halfway down, hit the drain, and shot along the ground and ripped my middle stump out. I mean, it never got half an inch off the ground.
Yeah, it's actually true, isn't it? There were quite a number of fastish bowlers came here and saw this great thing across, isn't it? And they would try and deliberately hit it, bowling short. Here, hit it, because they knew when it hit this bit, it could go anywhere, do anything.
No, it did for me. I was a definite 100, that was, Geoffrey. Cruelly denied by dear old A.A. Jones. He was a good man. Good umpire too, actually. In goes Siddle. Bowls on the off stump. Pietersen drives a little loosely there. It was on the up. Reached it for it slightly. Fielded point. 192 for 3. I think I need to get through to tea unscathed now. They've got about 3 minutes to go. Might be the last over.
You need to say to Pietersen, he's got 50. It's almost like he's tethered a bit, isn't he? You can't get going. He can't get... You know, he usually scores so quickly with such a wide range of shots, but this is not the pitch that's going to allow you to do that. You're going to have to keep working.
Siddle, short of a length. Pietersen stands up, pushes him away through that offside. 1 run, 193 for 3.
I mean, unless somebody bowls really badly at you for a period, it's one of those pitches where it takes you quite a bit longer to score your runs because of the slowness. You play good shots and the ball doesn't rush off, does it? Or you play good shots, it doesn't come on, so your timings, you get it in the middle of the bat, but it doesn't rush off the bat for runs.
193 for 3. Collingwood still looking for that single for his half century. Siddle moves in, bowls to him. Is that it there? He pushes it away from full, round about the off stump, but in fact it's fielded by Hauritz at point. Geoffrey, we've been invited to a party.
Have we?
Yeah. Jenny and Lawrence are having a barbecue party. It's on August the 29th, 4 o'clock, to celebrate England regaining the Ashes. Let's hope that indeed you are celebrating. August 29th, that's after the Headingley Test match then, is it?
A long way to come from Headingley down.
After the
Where
Oval.
is it, in Cardiff? Daventry, I can see.
Ooh, yeah. Anyway, thanks to those two. Perhaps it's after the Oval Test match. This is a slower ball, pushed away up to mid-off. They're going for a quick single, and the throw misses the stumps, and Collingwood dives for his ground. He's got his 50. 194 for 3. It was a bit scrappy, a bit messy, but he wanted it. Pushed to mid-off. His 14th Test 50. You can see a lot of his teammates up there on the England balcony coming out and applauding him. And Collingwood, well, a typical Collingwood innings, really. A fighting knock. 4 fours, 125 balls. And he, with Pietersen, are digging England out of that hole in which they found themselves at 90 for 3. 194 for 3 now, with the tee just around the corner. Siddle bowls, a low full toss. Pietersen forward, plays up to mid-on. Siddle probably going for the Yorker there.
He keeps on coming, Siddle, doesn't he? I watched him in South Africa play, but he's obviously got a good attitude to bowling. He keeps on running in, trying things. I can see why any captain would feel comfortable with him, because he's not leaving anything on the park. He's giving you the lot every day. They were impressive when they beat South Africa in South Africa after losing in Australia. They were impressive with Australia.
Here's the last ball of the over. Oh, Pietersen again a little loosely drives there, and that ended up at mid-wicket, but that's 2 shots in that over. That I think England will be quite happy if they go for tea. Yes, they are. Pietersen just showing a little bit of a lapse of concentration, I felt there a couple of times.
Yeah. Little frustration and irritation that he just can't get right on top of the bowling and knock them around a bit. You've just got to keep working at a steady pace.
However, just say they've got through that session unscathed. 104 runs since that last wicket, and that's a really good effort, because at lunchtime England's position wasn't great really. 3 down, 97 on the board, but they've added 97 in that afternoon session, so 194 for 3, with Pietersen on 52 and Collingwood on 50. So that's a good fight back, Geoffrey. I'm with you. I mean, they were helped a little bit there. There's rather mysterious 5 overs from Clarke.
Well, that was one of those periods, that second hour of the afternoon, where sort of supports a number of us ex-players' impression that Ricky Ponting's been blessed as a captain with 2 great bowlers, McGrath and Shane Warne, for a long period of his captaincy, which has made his job easy. And we felt that he's okay as a captain, but he's not special in our books. You know, we don't put him down as one of the great thinkers about the game. He's just been lucky to have 2 great bowlers, a lot of good batsmen. You know, Haddin, Langer, you know, just retired. Gilchrist, probably the greatest batsman wicketkeeper of all time in any era. And it's going to test him a bit more, because he doesn't have that greatness in his bowling. He has some good bowlers. There's a difference, huge difference. Yeah. Then you got 2 guys who got nearly 1,300 Test wickets at early 20s. Yeah, you and I could captain them 2.
So what the entertainment is down there at tea time, Geoffrey? The people lining up. Something's going on down there. Some sort of presentation. By the look of it.
Well, it's not there, me, and I'm off for a cup of tea.
Go on, you go for a cuppa. That's fair enough. The card quickly. I must just warn Australian listeners, you are going to leave us briefly, but you will come back again, and by then possibly I'll be talking to Tony Cozier about this business in the Caribbean, the West Indies players being on strike. But before you go, just a quick look at the card. It won't take long. Cook out for 10. Brilliantly caught by Hussey off Hilfenhaus. That was 21 for 1, 67 for 2 when Strauss was caught by Clarke at second slip off Mitchell Johnson for 30. And then Johnson took his second wicket when Bopara was deceived by a slower ball and was caught by Hughes at point for 35. Johnson, the best of the bowlers, 2 for 45.